Next up, Twitter is testing upvoting and downvoting buttons for some iOS users. This is brilliant. I love this idea. The goal of the buttons is to highlight the more interesting and relevant replies in long threads. This would be great because you don't really have a way to signal, I disagree with this, or I find this quote lame in some way. So a tweet from Twitter support yesterday read, some of you on iOS may see different options to up or down vote on replies. We're testing this to understand the type of replies you find relevant in a conversation so we can work on ways to show more of them. Your downvotes aren't public while your upvotes will be shown as likes. In other words, they're taking what Dig and Reddit pioneered and they're moving that to Twitter. This is great for threads because if you go to Reddit or other forums, you used to be able to see the top 2 or 3 threads up top. Now, this does change the chronological nature of it. So you think of every child to the parent tweet. So I read a tweet. I thought that the TV series Loki was awesome. And then 10 people reply. Well, one of those might be the most interesting thread, but it could be the 10th one down. It would be better to move that to the top, but it is going to take a lot of retraining of users to understand that. Because when you go to Reddit, you're like, wait, why is this child to the parent tweet or the child thread, why is it up top? Oh, it's up top because it's the most interesting one. I kind of like that. The buttons can be seen as arrows like Reddit's or thumbs like Facebook. So they're testing a couple of different versions of this. And there's only a small number of testers can see these options. But this is the great renaissance going on at Twitter where they're trying a bunch of different things and maybe not being so precious about the product. Some key notes about the experiment. Twitter support continued. This is just a test for research right now. This is not a dislike button. Your downvotes are visible to you only. Votes won't change the order of replies. So they're not doing the order of replies yet, but that will be eventually where this goes in long threads. Some responses from Twitter with the obvious ones. What's the point of a dislike button if you can't see the numbers for it? And then this isn't quite a dislike button was the reply. In this research experiment, the thumbs down icon is a down vote that lets us know that you think the reply isn't relevant to the conversation. We want to better understand the types of replies you do and don't find relevant in a conversation. And Cody Elam, hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name correct, Cody, a user researcher at Twitter tweeted, we're testing a few approaches to allow people to upvote and downvote replies. This gives people the power to privately voice their opinion on the quality of replies without publicly shaming others while giving us more nuanced feedback. So I think you need to think about this as they're just trying to get some feedback on long threads. And I think whose opinions are quality discussions. They're not trying to make this a political one where it's like, I disagree with you. It's more, this is an interesting reply. This is a less interesting reply. Perhaps maybe thoughtful would be a way to think of it. This is a thoughtful reply or a compelling reply. Not that you disagree, but that you find it compelling or not compelling. And that's why at the bottom of Reddit threads, or I think even Hacker News, you'll see like things that are voted down a whole bunch. I think on Hacker News, they made them gray so that you barely see them on the screen when they get to the negative area. Historically, we've seen Twitter try and test other engagement buttons in the past. And they've been surveying users about emoji reactions, which is something you see on Facebook where you can put emoji reactions, which Facebook stole from Dave Morin and Path.com. And I think Dave Morin from Path.com got the idea from some Korean social networks, if my internet history and my social media history is correct. This fits into a lot of what Kayvon Bakepor discussed with me on episode 1225. If you go back to episode 1225, I had the chief product head at Twitter on the program. Twitter wants to connect people to their interests and to conversations that are healthy. So they understand Twitter's toxic. I am taking a Twitter break, not really for the toxicity, but more to focus on this show. Because I realized I was doing all these tweets about things that I talk about in the show. And I'm just like, you know what? I want to focus just on the show, just on getting this podcast, This Week in Startups, to 4 or 5 days a week and really work on my performance here and the information I share here. That's my goal. That's why I'm taking a bit of a Twitter break. I still look at Twitter every day. I'm probably spending less than half the amount of time on Twitter, maybe a third of the amount of time, because I don't reply anymore. The only thing I'm doing is I will like and retweet things about the show so you know the new episode's up. And I'm posting whenever the new show comes out, what's on the show today. So I just say new pod. And that's my plan for Twitter. And then I'm going to spend the rest of the year working on the book and this podcast because I find those two platforms more interesting for me, and I just have a limited amount of time. And as we wrap, Alexis Ohanian, co-founder of Reddit, chimed in, you haven't really created a product until someone else copies it. It is, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Okay, and finally, in the UAE, drones are zapping clouds with electricity to create rain. One of the driest countries on earth, the UAE, has been hit hard by heat waves and temperatures of up to 122 degrees. And according to the National Center of Meteorology's website, water security remains one of UAE's main future challenges. So right now, the country relies on groundwater for 2/3 of its water needs. This has made the country turn to create rain artificially, called cloud seeding. You've heard of that before, I'm sure. Previously, cloud seeding involved salt flares, where planes dropped a bunch of flares into low clouds, but this is kind of different. The UAE oversaw more than 200 cloud seeding operations in the first half of 2020, successfully creating rainfall. So here we go. There have also been successes in the US, China, India, and Thailand. I wonder why we're not doing this when we have fires and we have wildfires in California. Why aren't we going up and seeding the clouds and creating rain and trying to put them out? A 10-year cloud seeding experiment in Wyoming resulted in 5 to 10% increases in snowpacks. This is really interesting. Tahoe here in California, the real estate crashed after we had like 3 or 4 really bad short ski seasons because there was no snow. This could change everything. If we can dump snow, they might say, you know what, this weekend, there will be 4 to 7 inches of new powder, and we're going to force that to happen, or we're going to intervene if it doesn't happen naturally. It's a brave new world, folks. Obviously, there are concerns about the impact on the environment and the cost of doing this. So this is just testing out new technology that zap clouds with electricity to create rain. Basically, the clouds are clumped together and produce precipitation artificially. The UAE is one of the first countries in the Arab Gulf region to use cloud seeding technology. And the efforts are part of the country's ongoing, in quotes, quest to ensure water security since the 1990s through the UAE Research Program for Rain Enhancement. Teams today need a central hub for all the information and work that they're sharing, especially now because you're working remotely, and Notion allows you to take all of the talking culture you had and turn your company into a writing culture company. You want to write stuff down, and then you want people to read it, comment on it, and refine it. And all that knowledge builds and builds inside your Notion. When we went fully remote in March of 2020, Notion became our internal knowledge bank. And actually, here is one of my producers going through our pod notes page on Notion, where we highlight all the top lessons from every episode. Notion is the one place where every team, from engineering to sales, can work together seamlessly with 500 integrated apps, including Google and Slack, so you can collaborate in real time and tailor workflows to your needs. Hundreds of thousands of teams worldwide are already delighting their employees with Notion. Plus, Notion has a worldwide community of millions of users creating templates and tutorials, so the product is continually improving. Go to notion.so and use the promo code TWIST to get $250 off your annual team plan. That's multiple months for free for your growing team. That's notion.so and use the promo code TWIST during checkout to get $250. Very generous offer. Thank you to my friends at Notion. Number one, for making a great product, and number two, for $250. Really good job.